So, welcome back to Mission Makers. We are here in Amsterdam at the Andaz Hotel, ADE, day 2. We're ready to go. And we are absolutely honored to be joined by Bianca Senna, who is Ayrton Senna's niece. And for all of the people that follow the show, you know, we have a huge connection to motorsport. So we're really excited that both worlds of music and motorsport are colliding today. So welcome, Bianca. How's your experience of ADE been so far?
Well, thanks a lot for inviting me to be here. It's a pleasure, to be part of such a immense and new experience being ADA. This is my first time here, and it's really interesting for me to tap into a completely different environment and background. My background is obviously motorsport and and branding and things like that, and for me to find new worlds as this is, it's amazing. Thanks a lot for making that happen.
And what brings you to ADE? Tell our audience more.
So in last year we decided to do an album called Driven Senna Driven, bringing all the best, most of the best DJs in the world to be part of this project, and the objective of this album is to basically tap people into their purpose, what they come, like everybody has their, like, we are all born with something that is unique ours, and I think through our brand, that's what we want to, tap into and make sure that people realize that this is their force. And I think Ayrton is a very good example of someone that really, pushed it through his purpose, no matter how hard it was. And I think this album is about that, so bringing this to the new generations is really, really, unique, because we are always trying to push this view of the world, for the new generations as well, not only for the people that, used to see Ayrton driving. So, this project is just like taps into all of that. And, the results are pretty exciting.
Absolutely. And obviously music is such a universal language, and it speaks to every generation, right? And so what's your experience of electronic music? Obviously Brazil has like a huge history and love for music. Is that something you experienced growing up?
Yeah, since the beginning, I think 20 years ago, that's, I think, the first time that I, got to, listen to electronic music, I fell in love. That's something that, since then, I love listening. It pushes me, when I am, lazy, or when I'm tired, or like when I am super excited, I need to put some music, and this is the kind of music that I like. And funny enough, my brother Bruno used to DJ as well. So yeah, so we had that in common. And since then, Bruno, like, obviously he's not DJing anymore, but he was also a good person to be around when we were doing this project, because he knows about music much more than I do. And for me, it was really crazy to be able to connect both of us in a completely new project, because before we were together in motorsport, now we are together in music, so it's really exciting.
Shifting gears a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
So Ayrton was much more than a driver, and his legacy has continued to touch millions, even 30 years on. So what are some of your fondest memories growing up with him?
It's interesting, because obviously everybody sees him from the outside, right? Like when when he was in the track, when he was racing, and this part is what I learned after he died. Okay. So for me, he was my uncle, and he was a very caring person, very generous, very funny. So for me, like what I remember of him is like laughing and playing and joking. It's when we were on vacations, we are always together. Either in the beach house or at the farm. And what I remember most is how he didn't stop. He was always doing something. He couldn't stop, like, still in a chair. He was always in the movement. And he pushed us, we were all kids, to do what he wanted to do. So it was really, really exciting to have him around.
What do you think is a deeper message behind his journey, beyond the fame, beyond the accolades, that you think that people need to hear today?
I think he represents, the hero's journey from, Campbell, which is basically you need to find your inner purpose, and then you have to keep fighting for it because, things will be hard all the time. And I think that's what he went through in his life. And then he was really, easy to see him, how upset he was many times. I don't know if you watched the documentary, but it looks like he's an actor because he's like, you can see completely what he's feeling. And I think for me, that's the purpose and the message, which is, it's going to be hard, but your biggest strength is the one that is inside you. Nobody can take it away from you, no matter what. And then you have to, keep your values, on check. You need to have, resilience, determination. You will find a way to do it. Like sometimes it's going to be harder, but if you keep pushing, you're going to, follow it through. So for me, that's what, his history in the end represents, and what we brought into to the brand and to all the projects that we have. We always have this message. So we go from, a cap to a real estate building, but all of these products in the end are inspiration. Is, like you see inspiration when you see them. You don't see a cap, and that's what, the brand is about. And that's our mission, like it's not about selling products. It's about making sure that we bring this message to the new generations, and we remind people that were, watching Ayrton back then, that this is something really important that we have to, follow through.
Absolutely. And I think something that hasn't been widely talked about, but is in the book, is about how Ayrton had this motor coordination delay as a child. And it's just absolutely extraordinary because obviously when you think about what he went on to achieve, obviously one of the most precise and skilled drivers in Formula One history. And we were talking a little bit before off air that like I also have a motor coordination delay, and I also love racing. So and from what I understand, he was given a go-kart at the age of 4, and probably that helped him a lot because those formative years are so important. I think 80% of your brain is formed by the time you're 6. So I think when you're very young, if you have the chance to go deeper into it. But could you tell us more about, what that journey was like for him? Is it something that as he became more successful and, made it into F1 and had all the support around him, is it something he ever revisited or examined? Tell us more.
When he was young, he was very energetic as well. So he had as a kid, you don't focus on one thing. You focus in 300 million things. And he was very, what's the name for that? Clumsy, And but since we put him in the go-kart, I think that's when he focused his energy in, a specific thing. And I think that's when he learned how to, use more of his brain to achieve what he wanted. And I think he was always the person that, having difficulty wasn't an issue for him. Like it was part of the journey. And, so that was just one more, rock on the path, but it's not something that defined him. And I think that's, many people that have some deficiency, if they tap into that, they feel that they're so much stronger than people that don't have any problems. Like you see, like nowadays there is that speaker that doesn't have both legs and arms, and he does everything. He does more things than I do. So it's really something, like that you cannot define yourself by your limitations, like you just have to find a way to do what you want despite your limitations.
Absolutely. It has to become your superpower, right?
Exactly.
So his name is very unique. Do you know why his parents chose that name for him?
Yeah, this name is something that, keeps coming because obviously like in Portuguese it's easy to say, which is Ayrton. But when you try to do it in English, nobody can do it. So it's really funny. So that's one of the reasons why he changed to Senna, like, used his surname instead of the first name, because nobody could say his name properly. But it was because there was this TV show which the commentator, the guy that was on TV, had this name, and my grandmother loved that name. So that's why.
Does it mean anything?
No.
It's just completely new name. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's defined the meaning of that.
Yeah.
And so one of his final wishes was to create the Senna brand. So how do you feel that reflects his values, which I think his values seem to be extremely timeless. They resonate with every generation, right? And so how do you see the Institute as a sort of living extension of his spirit?
Yeah, Ayrton came up with the Senna brand back when he was still alive, I think 2 years before. And his idea was to, give his lifestyle, to others, so basically what we do today, which is, through products, through experiences. Back then, not much experiences, but, products, people could, share his way of life. And so that happened in 1992 or something like that. He also created the Senninha brand, which is a cartoon for kids, because he wanted to speak to the children in the way that that the children would want, so entertainment and back then comics, which were very popular. And but he was always very very worried about Brazil, because Brazil had and has a very different social gap. Yeah. So basically, he was always, making some donations here and there, when people approached him, but he wanted to do something more, professional. So he asked my mother in '94, before the season started, to think about what they could do, like, properly. My mother was a psychologist back then, so not not in the business world at all. And then, unfortunately, they didn't have the chance to speak again. But after he died, my family decided to open the institute right away, and we put the brands inside the foundation then to help generate revenue for the foundation to do its job. And so the reason why we do what we do is because we know that education is, the key to unlock, potential and unlock, the best of everyone. And that's why, we have been working in education through these 30 years, which we reached more than 36 million children in Brazil. And we trained over 300,000 teachers as well, because our work is not directly to the child, but is basically, training the whole educational system, from, the mayor to the secretary of education to the teacher, to make sure that they are doing a good job so that the kids can learn. And through that, we change so many lives. And the impact, when you impact something by the teacher, that means that even if you are not doing the project anymore next year, all the knowledge that they got can be applied forever. So it's really, something that it's very, very emotional for us. And 30 years. So we are 30 years on, and, so much to do. Like, obviously, 36 million is a lot, but we're talking about 80 million children every year. So it's still very little compared to, the problem that we have.
There's still work to be done, but it's absolutely, phenomenal, the impact, because I think, the education industry, the education sector in pretty much, not all countries, but a lot of countries, is the last to get, serious reform, and is still entrenched in very systemic and ways. And as you say, like, it is about finding that calling and that purpose, which can be very indicated in childhood, because it's like what you gravitate to, right? And then society kind of starts to take that a bit away through the system, right? So phenomenal work that you're doing. And so what motivated you to take like the leadership, role at the brand, and like how has that journey like shaped you on a spiritual level?
I think for me, I'm always trying to find things that move my heart. Like I'm not into the money. I'm into the purpose, and I think the brand has this power of change, of inspiration to so much people, that I said, like, why not make it something that can follow perpetuity, but not only for the generations that saw Ayrton drive, but use that DNA to help others as well. And I think, unfortunately, we are seeing depression rates, suicidal rates really going up. And I think this message is something that can change people's life. So I think for me that was the reason to be in the front of this brand. And well, it's my uncle as well, so it's part of the family. So for me, it makes all the connections.
Amazing, amazing. And so obviously Ayrton was known for his speed on the track, but also for his deep introspection. It seemed like he was on a very spiritual path. And so how do you think that he managed to find, stillness, and presence even in this incredibly high pressurized environment? This is even before, social media, but the amount of attention that he received was just enormous. Do you know if there were any rituals or any habits that he practiced? But yeah, to really tap into that stillness.
What I know, and I think that's something that it's really important, is that you need to be really prepared. I think that's the first thing, because the more prepared you are, the less worry you have in your mind that something is going to go out, going not as the plan. So he was really, really, really focused on training. There is a story, like when he was in, I think he was going to Formula 3, and he didn't speak English back then, because like he learned by, by doing it. Like he didn't, go to a class or anything. And then he was with a friend of his, which he was a racing driver as well, and said, like, you say that I want 10 more days of testing. No, but he's not gonna let you do that. Ask. And then he asked, and then he got, in the end, 20 days more testing than, it was in the, driving package. Because he knew, like, the more I train, the better prepared I am, the less chance of failure I have. So I think that's one of, the main keys for that. I think, secondly, he was really prepared physically, which is also very important when you are, like, in a racing car, like you are, like, with suits, helmet, and everything, like, which is really hot. You are inside a very small place, and you are, like, with your heart around 180 beats per hour per minute, which is like
for 2 hours straight.
Exactly. So if you are not used to that, like if you don't have a good physical preparation, then again you feel unprepared. And I think third, it was his spirituality as well. He was a Christian. He was really a believer of God, and he even says that many moments in his life. And I think that was the other connection that made him go a little bit further than the others, but not in the risk, but knowing that like he was able to do that. So it's I think those are the three big elements of his why he was so down to earth when he was racing. Because like I used to work for my brother Bruno, and it is a very hard, difficult environment. The pressure is really hard, and you don't have a minute to rest. Back then, you did have more time, between the racing and the training and everything. But nowadays, it's like per minute, like you don't miss a minute. So it's very challenging, very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's just so much more now, right? But yeah, wow. And I mean, do you know what kind of music that he was like into, while he was alive?
He loved Tina Turner. He loved Phil Collins, Tears for Fears, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Brazilian music. He was like he was always listening to something like Queen. Queen was something that really reminds me of him, because when we were in one of our vacations with him in Portugal, in his house, every day he would wake up and put the CD on, and it would stay for the whole day, So yeah, he really loved Queen.
Awesome. So going back to a little bit to the work you're doing. Obviously, the education system is entrenched with these inequalities. So, has there been a lot of challenges for you in terms of this mission and impacting the amount of lives that you have?
Definitely. My mother is the one that created the foundation, and is still the head of the foundation. And I could see, from the outside and then from the inside, when I started working for the foundation as well, how hard it is, because you're talking about politics, right? Like in the end, because our work is through public education, you need to, convince a lot of people that this is important. And you have the problem is of the elections, right? Like every 4 years, you change who is in the, in power, and then you have to start over again. So it has been really tiring in that sense, but the way that we manage to cope with that is by making sure that the technologies that we apply are become public policies, because then it doesn't matter which government goes, then this will still be done. So basically you need to work on the direct part, which is make sure that the children are learning, but you also have to make sure that politically you are able to continue your work. So it's very hard.
And how do you see technology impacting that in any way?
It could impact more, but when you consider that, for instance, there are schools in Amazon, which the children take 4 hours to get to school, because they have to walk 1 hour, then they have to get a boat for another hour, then they have to walk another hour. So it's just you don't have internet there, you don't have computers there. So if we were able to, give technology to everybody, then I think it would be much easier. But the problem is, since we don't, most of the schools they have one computer in a locked room, because nobody knows how to deal with the computer. So it's not easy. Obviously, when you are in the big cities like São Paulo, Rio, then technology can have a better impact, a bigger impact. But since we are thinking about solutions that can go all over Brazil, we need to understand that this is one of the hassles that we have, because internet is not something that is spread everywhere. Obviously, with the mobile phone now, it's getting easier, but there are places in Brazil that doesn't have internet.
And are you working with children in the Amazon?
Unfortunately, I haven't been there, but my mother had. It's amazing. You see them, all Indians, and it's so cute. You have no idea. It's really cute, and what they say that changed their life through, for instance, a lot of fathers and mothers are not literate, and when the child is literate, they want to teach the parents and the whole village, so they ask paper to start teaching, and then they become what they want to do in their lives is become a teacher. So you change the whole community around you, not only the child that you are, and then you see the face of the mother and father, how proud they are of the children. It's very emotional. It's something amazing.
I mean, just by touching one life, it has the domino effect, right? Which is the power of education. So I'm really curious, because obviously the documentary about Senna was just extraordinary. I mean, even if you weren't a motorsport fan, it just touches you in such a deep way. Everything about that documentary and the soundtrack. So what was the spiritual, the inspiration or the desire to create a new Senna film that's coming on Netflix? And how does your family want it to differ to what's already been said? What sort of parts of his life do you hope to encapsulate and reveal to a new generation?
If you want to hear the rest of our conversation, then head over to Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you get your podcasts.